First of all, is why are you there? I mean, we would argue they're there because the U.S. has a legitimate interest in being there, that having Afghanistan being a haven for the Taliban and al-Qaeda doesn't work very well, didn't work well before 9/11. And so when you're in interest, you stick to you get it right. And, you know, I think that there has been a change. And so that shows that you can do things differently.
A change in what way? What kind of change is there?
No, James, there hasn't been a change. I mean, last year was the worst year in terms of Afghan deaths, in terms of Afghanistan. Last year was the worst year statistically for U.S. casualties. And, oh, by the way, the biggest nightmare of all, probably the worst case scenario, every year we've been in Afghanistan, public approval rating inside of Pakistan has decreased. And a poll came out 2 weeks ago. Pakistani approval rating by the general public was an 80% disapproval rating. A policy in Afghanistan doesn't make sense anymore for our interests or for a national security purpose whatsoever at this point. 7 attempts, minimal of 7 attempts. We know by unclassified documents, WikiLeaks and others, there's a minimal of 7 attempts by al-Qaeda to get their hands on nuclear weapons inside of Pakistan. The United States did nothing to prevent it because we were bogged down in Afghanistan. Our priorities are wrong. Our priorities are spent inside of Afghanistan trying to nation build, not an actual counter-terrorist activity. The only way to get out of Afghanistan right now, and the only way that we're going to find any sort of fixing this solution with, is by bringing peace between Kashmir, India, and Pakistan. And the only way to do that is to get troops out of Afghanistan. What you're doing by our presence there, we are renting their public approval. Granted, our soldiers are doing an incredible job of trying to protect the population and train the Afghan forces. They're not the ones to blame. But the bottom line is, with the terms of Afghans, they have a 100-year-old mentality that's basically 100 years behind us, and that's not going to change unless you stay there for another 100 years.
I haven't heard a strategy from you, which is basically walk away and, oh yeah, solve the Kashmiri crisis.
Well, it's very simple. Right here. The Afghan Study Group. This is how we get out of Afghanistan. James, this is it. I'll tell you what. Take that over to the director of the Heritage Foundation. Give it to him. Because that's how we're going to get out of it.
But walking away is not a strategy.
It's not walking away. We're talking about leaving.
Wait. What you're saying is, like, after Pearl Harbor, if we just walked away and, you know, let the Japanese have the Pacific.
No, read the policy. No, we're talking about training. No, we're talking about training an Afghan National Army by leaving about 25 to 35,000 troops there. You can do counter-terrorist activities by attacking al-Qaeda. With that, you simply get out of the east and get out of the south, where the Taliban, their threat. The Taliban is a 30,000 person tribal militia.
Why do we keep fighting a war that we do spend hundreds of billions of dollars on if the safe haven isn't even where we are?
Because I think that would agree. No, look, that's very rude, right? To do that, mock me, right? Look, I think they agree that part of the solution of dealing with Pakistan is dealing with Afghanistan. That's the reason why they call it AFPAC, is they go together. I mean, it's if you run away in Afghanistan, they just walk back in from Pakistan. Just like when we pushed them out of Afghanistan, they went into Pakistan. You have to deal with both sides of the problem. The Pakistani side of the problem is hard, but the Pakistani side of the problem gets a lot harder if you walk away from Afghanistan and you let the Taliban walk in.
You have to look at what the Taliban is. The Taliban are Pashtuns. There are Pashtuns in Pakistan and there are Pashtuns in Afghanistan. What you have to do is allow the Pakistani government to protect themselves from any sort of insurgency, and you have to allow the Afghans to shield themselves from an insurgency. It doesn't mean continue to make Pakistanis mad at Afghans and Afghans mad at Pakistanis. We're siding in a civil war.
Right.